Hey guys, it's Levi here and welcome back to another trip report. So today I'm here in my hotel in Singapore. It's the Furama City Centre with a pretty cool view. Actually, I'll quickly show you before I go into the details. What a view of Singapore. So there's like we've got the Ferris wheel over there. Absolutely great view, probably best hotel view I've ever had. Nonetheless, I'll actually be flying with Qantas today from here in Singapore over to Darwin in the Northern Territory on my long trek back to Adelaide, which is going to get so complicated. We don't know if we have to go straight from Darwin to Adelaide to finish the trip or if we have to stop in Alice Springs because the seats aren't looking very good because we're using my dad's staff travel benefits, which means that we get very cheap fares but are not guaranteed a seat. So if the flight's full, we don't get on. So from Singapore to Darwin today, we've paid for that full fare in economy class, and then the rest of the leg from however we get home, whether it's Alice Springs, Melbourne, or a direct flight to Adelaide, will be my dad's staff travel. So it should be pretty interesting. The aircraft that we're scheduled to have today is VH-VZX, I believe, which has split scimitars, the new livery, and seat back entertainment. So it should be a pretty cool flight. Come along with me from the journey, checking out the hotel, driving to the airport, and actually having a look at the jewel at Singapore Changi Airport. So come along, and I hope you enjoy the video. So now, here I am at Terminal 1 at Singapore Changi Airport. We had a pretty uneventful ride in, I would say, a bit of a VIP Mercedes van, as you probably saw in the clips. It had like white leather seats and ambient lighting and everything. Pretty cool drive, heaps of scenery to look at, so it was quite nice. So now here I am inside the jewel itself, and oh my goodness, it was absolutely incredible. The best way for me to describe it to you would be go see it for yourself, because there are no words to describe how cool it was. It is literally, if you don't know, basically just a waterfall in a dome with shopping centres, food courts, everything surrounding it. It basically was 10 floors. There are about 5 floors above and 5 floors below. It was absolutely incredible. You have to go check it out for yourself if you're ever in Singapore. And the cool thing about it is you actually don't have to go through the airport or anything to get in. You can actually go in without having to go through security or anything. It's actually its own standing building, you could say, which is really, really cool. So if you lived in Singapore, you could go there on the weekend if you wanted to with no hassle. Nonetheless, as you just saw in the previous few clips, we checked in our bags at the jewel, which you can actually do, which I was like, what? I saw the Qantas Check-in while we were walking around, and my dad saw it too, and I was like, what the heck? So you can actually check in for a few selected airlines in the actual jewel itself, so you don't even have to be in the airport to check in. Nonetheless, so this is a bit of footage from the jewel itself. I went around walking with my dad with my camera to get some pretty cool shots, and I did actually end up getting quite a few good ones, which I was quite happy about. Nonetheless though, now my family and I are just walking through the huge airport terminal to get through to security and customs. Singapore Changi Airport has actually been rated world's best airport multiple times. It's been rated best in 2000, 2006, 2010, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2018, 2019 and 2023, but it has lost its title a few times to Doha Airport in Qatar, but I'm pretty sure it's regained it since then as well. Surprisingly, for such a big international airport, customs and security was an absolute breeze. We got through within probably about 20 to 30 minutes. There were no lines whatsoever. It was pretty crazy. While my mum and my brother went around doing a bit of shopping around the terminal, my dad and I decided to head around the terminal to a few spotting locations. It's pretty cool as an Australian to go to an airport like this to see all like the airlines that we don't get, well, especially I don't get in Adelaide, like Scoot, for example. I took my 24 to 70mm lens on my Sony around and got some pretty cool shots as well using my 100 to 400 as well. Now in this clip is our aircraft arriving from Darwin, which is a Qantas 737, and I was quite happy to see that it has split scimitars, as I've been wanting to fly on one of the Qantas aircraft that's been fitted with these. So now, while waiting for our boarding to commence, which was still another few hours away, I decided to whip out my 100 400mm lens and try and get some aircraft arriving on 20 right. This was an absolutely awesome location that my dad and I found. My dad actually pointed it as we were walking out. It's literally just at the end of a corridor, probably a corridor that's like 20 meters long, and you get to the end of it and it's literally just like a long hallway with the window on one side. Heaps of people were having like their lunch breaks there, but it was an awesome spot because no one was there, and because it was away from all the busy traffic in the middle of the airport, it was quiet so it was an absolutely awesome location. I was able to get heaps of aircraft like Turkish Airlines, Singapore Airlines, especially the A380 taxiing past in the last video, and then also one of the Qantas A330s arriving, I'm pretty sure from Brisbane, but it may have been Melbourne. Also, which I thought was pretty cool, was getting this One World Finnair A350, which I would never see in Australia, only in Singapore as an Australian, so it was really cool. Nonetheless, though, we are just about to begin boarding for our flight. Cool thing about Singapore, well, you could say cool, it's a bit of a hassle, is you've actually got to go through security again before you can actually get into the spot where you would board the plane. So if you actually want to get in and board the plane, you have to go through a second security at the actual gate itself. So you can't actually walk up to the windows and get photos of the aircraft, which was a little bit annoying. That's why we had to use the hallway. Nonetheless, though, I got this pretty cool video of our aircraft today, which was a 13-year-old Qantas Boeing 737-800, registered as VH-VZX, which was then parked next to the Qantas A330 that just arrived in the previous few videos. So here's this little area to give you a bit of an insight. So it's got heaps of seats, it's got charging ports whatsoever, but as you can see on the right-hand side, it's got glass, so you can't actually get in unless you're traveling on the flight. So plane spotting can be a bit difficult. Nonetheless, though, please enjoy this boarding footage, and I'll speak to you at my seat.
How are you? Hi.
So here is my seat for today, 25 Alpha. On the seat you have a pillow and blanket since it's an international flight. I didn't actually know that this would be provided on the 737, but it was, which I thought was quite nice. You get a relatively medium-sized screen on the seat in front of you, not big, not small. You get a tray table that folds down and extends back and forth, as well as some charging ports. You get a water in every seat, which I thought was a lot nicer than those like Australian spring waters that they have, because they're only like 200 mils. These ones are about 400, so you get about double the water. You got all right leg room. It's only about a 4-hour flight, so nothing to complain about. I definitely wouldn't want to be flying one of these on something like 6 hours, but for 4 hours it's totally fine. In the seat pack in front of you, you do have the safety information card, which of course as an av geek I'm always tempted to take, but this time I decided to say no to my inner wants and just leave it. There's also a magazine as well in case you didn't bring a device or you just want to have a flick through. It's got some pretty cool things about like the One World Alliance and where airlines go, so even as an av geek you could possibly even find it interesting. You also have an adjustable headrest, which is quite nice and pretty comfy, and it was pretty good that this plane had the new cabin compared to the old one, so this one's got newer seats and these seat back entertainment. I don't know how keen I would be to be flying on like one of these to Darwin without seat back entertainment. It may get a little rough. That's why I always tend to bring my own device. Nonetheless though, please enjoy the pushback footage, the taxi out and takeoff with some pretty cool views, and then I'll speak to you once we've climbed up and I'll show you like the Wi-Fi and the entertainment, but nonetheless just enjoy the views.
Smoking isn't allowed on Qantas flights. Your aircraft is fitted with smoke detectors, including in the toilets, so there's no smoking until you're back on the ground. This includes e-cigarettes and vapes.
It's time to get ready for takeoff. Ensure that your seat back is upright and your tray table is stowed. And unplug any headsets or cables attached to the seat in front. If you've missed anything, it's on your safety card, also in your seat pocket. And remember, your crew are here.
So now that we're on our way up to our cruising altitude after taking off from Singapore Changi, I thought I would show you the seatback entertainment first before the Wi-Fi. So in front of you, you've got a reasonably medium-sized screen. Since it's relatively old, it can be quite unresponsive, I find, as you can see in this clip here. Most of the time it'll take about 2 taps for the thing to get what you want. Like if you've clicked on movies, for example, in the menu option, it'll probably take about 2 taps to get there. Sometimes it can even take 3 or 4. Sometimes it'll just take 1 though. It's very hit and miss. They are pretty unresponsive compared to like the Singapore Airlines one that I flew on the 787. That was super responsive. So I'm not sure if it's something down to just how outdated it is, or if they've got like a really extra big layer of protective screening over it. Nonetheless though, enough of that. They've got plenty of movies and shows to choose from, heaps of ones that are quite new to TV or the cinema they've got on there, which I thought was quite nice. They've also got a kids zone, so if you've got young children, they've got something to do on a longer flight like this. Nonetheless though, after checking that out, I thought I'd check out the Wi-Fi. I had a bit of trouble with it initially. As you can tell in this video in the top left hand corner, I was recording this at 7:58. And basically it came up with this screen for about 15 minutes, and then finally at 8:12 I was able to press connect. After you've pressed connect, it'll just take you through about a 30-second ad, and then you're able to select in-flight Wi-Fi and get Wi-Fi. About an hour and a half to 2 hours after takeoff, the crew came around with our meal service. I can't honestly remember what the selection was, but all I remember was I got the chicken Caesar salad, which came with the chicken, tomatoes, eggs, lettuce, cheese, and a dressing, along with a dessert of, I think it was either a cheesecake or a jelly slice, and also bread roll. The bread roll was quite nice, actually, probably the better part of the meal if I'm going to be completely honest with you. It was very moist, very flavourful, had like a garlic seasoning on it. It was quite nice. Then after that I tried the chicken salad. To be completely honest, I didn't love it. I thought that for the amount of salad we were given, there was not enough dressing. The dressing came in this tiny little cup, and we were given quite a bit of salad, so I thought that the general meal service was quite disappointing. The crew did come around and give us drinks and everything, but besides that, it was pretty ordinary. Otherwise, after getting a few time-lapse videos in the previous few clips you just saw, I thought I would finally try my dessert. Unfortunately, by the time I got to it, it was a bit melted, but otherwise I thought I'd still give it a try. To be completely honest with you, it wasn't amazing, but it wasn't disgusting. It was like eatable, like something you wouldn't hate to eat. The only negatives I really found about it was just quite dry and really flavourless. Like looking at it, you'd think, well, you know, this is going to be so good, but it just didn't really live up to what I initially thought of it. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a dessert. I can't, yap on about it. It was alright. It was okay. The meal service altogether, yeah, it was alright. It was probably a solid 5 or 6 out of 10. Nothing amazing, nothing horrible. Otherwise, I thought I'd get a few more clips outside the window of a few big cities that we flew past. I'm not exactly sure which ones they were, but they were pretty popularly danced. So otherwise, now I'm just checking out the bathroom. I thought I would quickly do a bit of like a Noel Phillips style loo review. The bathroom's got 2 coat hooks, which is obviously just to put jumpers, jackets, coats, whatever you want on it. They've also got Qantas branded soap, which I always think is a nice touch to have the airline brand things in there. Otherwise, it was a little bit dirty on the floor, but the mirror and everything was pretty clean, so nothing to really complain about. I forgot to at the start, so I thought I would quickly put it in here of our flight path today from Flight Radar 24. So basically, we initially climbed up to the 30,000 feet, and then we went up and up and up from there. We went to 3 different cruising altitudes, all in the 30,000s. Otherwise, we flew pretty much north of Indonesia, before kind of just tracking barely above Bali, and then across the ocean to the Northern Territory. Now the cabin is currently just being cleaned and rechecked before we can land, so we're currently just on our descent. Funny thing about landing into Darwin was because we were landing on the north runway, you pretty much don't even know you're landing until you literally see the lights at about 500 feet, as you can see in this clip here. The gear was down and flaps were at full basically by the time I even noticed we were in Darwin, so it was pretty weird with no lights showing up until final approach, but that's, just a bit random. Otherwise, just please enjoy this landing footage into Darwin, and I'll speak to you at basically after we deboard, so please just enjoy the footage.
welcome to Darwin. It's 1:33 a.m. on the 24th of July. Please remain seated while we taxi to the terminal. Once we arrive, you'll be leaving through the forward door on the left. Please feel free to take your electronic device out of the flight mode now if you wish. And if you're leaving us here in Darwin today, all checked-in baggage will be available for you down on the ground floor on Carousel 4. Take care when you open the overhead lockers, just in case your bags have moved. And please check your seat pocket and surrounding area before you leave. A reminder...
So now, here we are, all landed and safely in Darwin. The pretty cool thing about us taxiing back to the gate was because you've got to turn right and then right again to cross the runway again in Darwin, we were able to taxi right past all the United States Air Force KC-46s that were in Darwin for the exercise that was going on with Australia. There were a bunch of F-35s and stuff in hangars, because I saw on their Facebook pages the day after of them training out over the ocean. So I'm sure there was a few KC-30s and everything there as well. The terminal was pretty busy for 1 a.m. All the flights were basically just getting ready to depart to different areas of Australia when we arrived. Unfortunately, because we have to share a gate here, we had to share it with the Singapore Airlines 737 MAX that arrived before us. So we basically came to a stop on the taxiway for about 15 to 20 minutes before we could even pull in. And then after we pulled in, we had to wait a little longer, again about 10 minutes, for the remaining passengers on the Singapore Airlines flight to our left to deboard so that we could now get off. It was a little bit annoying and something that I thought was a bit like, what? The cabin crew came over and at least informed us, which I thought was really nice. They couldn't have said, they may have, didn't have to say anything pretty much, but it was good that they had the communication and just told us exactly what was going on, which I thought was really good on their behalf, and I really appreciate them doing that. As you can kind of see in the jetway next to us, there are passengers still deboarding as we're pulling in, so we still had to wait, as I said before, just a few minutes or so for them to all get off, and then we could then get off after them. The amazing thing that I thought was the best thing about going via Darwin on our way back to Adelaide instead of going via Sydney or Melbourne was the customs. There was no line besides literally our aircraft going through customs, because the only international flights are us and the Singapore guys had basically already gone through by the time we got there. So customs was 100 people, and it was so quick. They had heaps of people there, airport staff, to get us through as quickly as possible. So I reckon from the minute we deboarded the aircraft to the minute we got into the actual terminal, I'd say maybe 30 minutes to go through customs. And keep in mind, Australia is probably one of the strictest countries in regards to airport customs and everything. So I have to say, I thought that's pretty impressive. So that is a positive thing, that if you're ever going from Singapore back to Adelaide, or even if you lived in New Zealand and you had to make a stop somewhere, going via Darwin isn't necessarily that bad. It has its pros and cons, pretty much, if I had to sum it up. So now currently we're all just deboarding the aircraft. Unfortunately, the lady there on the left in the wheelchair got sick on the plane and was vomiting. I'm not sure if it was air sickness. They were talking to her and there was a language barrier when we were in customs, so they had to get a translator in and everything. They weren't making a scene, but everyone was kind of looking at them as that was the main subject. Nonetheless though, this is basically the end of the trip report. I appreciate you all so much for watching this. Please make sure to like, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.